Today, we're diving into a rock and roll what if so juicy it makes the multiverse theory. Imagine this. What if Bob Dylan didn't just go electric in 1965, but he did it with Led Zeppelin? Yeah, you heard that right. The poet laureate of discontent teaming up with the hammer of the gods. Let's rewind and see how that glorious chaos could have gone down. Let's start at the real fork in the road. It's July 25th, 1965. Bob Dylan walks out on stage at the Newport Folk Festival with a Fender Stratocaster in hand, and it looked like he knew this was going to piss someone off. And oh boy, did it ever. Now, Dylan claims he didn't plan it all that far in advance, classic Dylan, always towing the line between prophet and prankster. He had recorded Like a Rolling Stone just 5 days earlier. He brought a hastily assembled band, including Mike Bloomfield from the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and lit the fuse. He played Maggie's Farm, Like a Rolling Stone, and a couple more. Amplified, aggressive, loud. Seeger threatened to cut the power with an axe. Literal axe. Like Paul Bunyan-level fury. But what if he hadn't just grabbed a blues band on short notice? What if, in some rock and roll wrinkle of fate, Dylan had linked up with a few British lads who, just a few years later, would redefine rock as we know it? Now, let's be fair, Led Zeppelin didn't technically exist in 1965. The members were around, sure. Jimmy Page was busy being a London studio guitar assassin, doing session work for everyone from the Kinks to Marianne Faithfull. John Paul Jones was also buried in studio gigs, and Robert Plant was probably somewhere in Birmingham singing in bands no one outside his block had heard of. But let's dream. Let's break time. Let's say Dylan, who was already tinkering with blues, rock, and gospel, had heard Page tear through a Yardbirds rehearsal and thought, this guy could add some muscle to Maggie's Farm. Imagine Dylan, fueled by disdain for folk purists, inviting Jimmy Page to play lead guitar instead of Mike Bloomfield. Then imagine John Bonham, still a teenager with a kit like an artillery unit, thundering behind Dylan's sneer. Folk fans wouldn't have booed, they'd have spontaneously combusted. Pete Seeger would have needed more than an axe. Newport would have gone down in history as the first time music broke the time-space continuum. Stylistically, Dylan and Zeppelin don't sound like a match made in heaven. Dylan's all about subtlety and subtext. Zeppelin, not so much. They're more about melting your eyebrows off with a riff so heavy it registers on the Richter scale. But here's the twist. Dylan wasn't subtle in '65. That year, he was raw, pissed off, and ready to shake off the folk straitjacket. Robert Plant wailing a harmony on Ballad of a Thin Man. Bonham slamming through Tombstone Blues. John Paul Jones giving Desolation Row a lone throb it never knew it needed. Dylan influenced everyone, Zeppelin included. Plant has gone on record calling Dylan a genius. Page played with every American blues artist he could find. If Dylan wanted raw electricity, Zeppelin could have short-circuited the grid. And Dylan, he was a magnet for change. He didn't like being told who to be. That's why he ditched folk orthodoxy in the first place.
We're talking to Pete Seeger, and on this allmusic.com bio of you, it says, Pete Seeger's adherence to the sanctity of folk music came to a boiling point with the advent of folk rock, and it's long been rumored that he tried to pull the plug on Bob Dylan's very electrified set with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band in 1965. Is that true?
No. It's true that I don't play electrified instruments. I don't know how to. On the other hand, I've played with people who play them beautifully, and I admire some of them. Howling Wolf was using electrified instruments at Newport just the day before Bob did. But I was furious that the sound was so distorted you could not understand a word that he was singing. He was singing a great song, Maggie's Farm, a great song. But you couldn't understand it. And I ran over to the sound man and said, fix the sound so you can understand him. And they hollered back, no, this is the way they want it. I don't know who they was. But I was so mad, I said, damn, if I had an axe, I'd cut the cable right down. I really was that mad. But I wasn't against Bob going electric. Matter of fact, some of Bob's songs are still my favorites. What an artist he is. What a great... I'd say maybe he and Woody and Buffy St. Marie and Joni Mitchell and Malvina Reynolds are the greatest songwriters of the 20th century. Even though Irving Berlin made the most money, they wrote songs that were trying to help us understand where we are, what we got to do. Still are writing them.